Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Friday, the 10th of July. Picking up where I left off yesterday, I was talking about having been up at Moose Lake for Donald McNabb's funeral. And yesterday, I was talking more about the lessons we've learned in the past and how they're necessary for today. Today, I'd like to talk about the importance of 3 days. In the Christian church, we recognize 3 days. It should be relatively easy, but just in case you need a hint because it's the middle of July, 3 days: Holy Friday or Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday. The 3 days that Jesus went to the cross, died and was buried, and then was resurrected. The 3 days it took for the world to be able to recognize what God had done. And it has brought me back again and again over this past week to the 3 days that the indigenous peoples used for the funeral of a loved one. There is a strong, although every indigenous community is different, they have a strong sense of community, and the funeral starts essentially with a wake. In this case, because the service itself was on Saturday, the wake started on Thursday evening, and in the afternoon, there are prayers said as the body is received by the family and brought into the church. And then the body is left in the church, and there are people playing music and singing gospel hymns and traditional Cree, in this case, traditional Cree hymns, and hymns that speak to the good news of Jesus Christ and the beauty that we are called to remember, even though we are mourning, even though we're in pain. And then the family stays with the body all night. I discovered later that mattresses had been brought into the church so the family could actually sleep. They don't stay awake necessarily, but they stay with the body. And one of the girls mentioned something to me that she slept beside her dad like she did when she was a child. That continues through the night, continued through Thursday night until Friday evening. And there were then at 9 o'clock on Thursday evening, there was a prayer vigil. Prayers were said and with the family. And then people continue to pray and stay with the body. People just come and go. They bring sandwiches. It's a community event at the church. And then all day Friday, people were there. And Friday evening, we had a Eucharist with all those who were gathered. And that I had the privilege of doing that. Deacon Cameron Buck led the prayers the evening before, but on Friday evening, I led the Eucharist. And it was incredibly powerful in so many different ways. Seeing the community come forward to to receive the body and blood of Christ in the midst of mourning was probably the most powerful thing I've seen. Sometimes we'll have a Eucharist at the funeral, but I've never seen this before, the way we did this. And then on Saturday, we had the funeral, and I was warned, if we had to drive back to Brandon. My archdeacon and I were there together. We had to drive back to Brandon as we both had services on Sunday morning. And so we arranged for the funeral to begin. The service began at 1 o'clock. Um, I learned that part of the funeral itself is the public viewing and then the family viewing. And then the prayer memorial service begins. Um, we started at 1 o'clock with the public viewing or the formal public viewing, and we didn't end the service, including the graveside, because I walked the casket to the graveside and then they lowered Reverend McNabb into the ground, built a box around him, and then part of the ritual is that they actually cover the grave. And that took till almost 5 o'clock. Um, but while it was long and drawn out, and it was, thinking what time I'm going to get home, I got home about 2 a.m. Um, that did not bother me. I have learned that when I go north, I don't look at my watch. My watch is always on my arm, except when I'm charging it before I go to bed. But I just don't look at it. There is a sense of time that's very different than the time we think of. Okay, so a funeral starts at 1. We're done the prayers by 2. Got the burial done by 2:30. We have the feast or the lunch, the reception. We're there by 3:30 tops. That doesn't even go through my head. It didn't even occur to me. There was things to do. There were people to pray with. There was a widow to stand and just hold as she cried. There were daughters and sons to mourn with. There were people to talk to, stories to be told, laughter and dogs, all kinds of reservation dogs, res dogs everywhere to be patted, and children to play with. One little girl kept taking my hand. She put on my ring, I don't have it on right now, but my bishop's ring, and She was wandering around showing everybody, and then I looked over and she's sucking on. She's got it in her mouth like it would be like one of those pop rings, those things, those candy rings that look like a big diamond on a plastic ring. She was just excited to be walking with the bishop and introducing me to people and just sitting with me, talking to me about purple, her favorite color, which is what I was wearing. The absolute power of the 3 days, the shock of the death, the numbing of the time in between, the realization that we are going to close that casket and put it in the ground, and the pain that comes with that, the finality, the closure that comes with that, that's necessary, but is so hard. That 3 days was incredibly powerful. And there's something to be said for that. I remember as a child, when I was in southwestern Ontario, all of our funerals were 3 days. If the person died in the night or in the morning, they would be taken care of at the funeral home on that evening. There'd be a visitation. The next day, a visitation in the afternoon and the evening. The next day would be the funeral. It was just natural. When I moved to Halifax, not so much. A lot of people were cremated, and it would be like, oh, we're going to have the funeral in a month when all the family can get home. And it always felt like something was missing. It felt like something was wrong. And it occurred to me this weekend that what was wrong with those sort of, we're going to wait a month, or those people who say we're not going to do anything, we're just going to go scatter dad's ashes or something, they're missing out on the process. They're missing out on the closure. They're missing out on the healing that happens when we gather as a community and we wrap ourselves around the widow or the widower and the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren and the great great grandchild. There's something powerful about 72 hours, that 3 days. And I think it has more to do, has a lot to do with spirituality, but I think it also has a lot to do with psychology and physiology. Everything that's happening in our bodies and in our minds and in our souls that takes that 72 hours, that 3 days. It's incredibly powerful. And I think it's something we should all think about. For those of you who think to yourselves, I don't want a big drawn out thing, that's okay. You make your own decision. But in making your decision about what you would like done when you die, please keep in mind that you're already gone. You're already safe in the arms of God. But the funeral, the process, the 3 days, whatever you would like to have done, it's not really for you. It's for the people you leave behind. And there could be something said about having 3 days where you can't deny it. You can't run away from it. You have to come face to face with the truth. But you're not coming face to face with it by yourself. You're coming face to face with it with a community who gathers around you, which makes it that much more bearable. I know this is Friday, and it's supposed to be Feel Good Friday. But in some ways, I think it really is. Because the 3 days can and does lead to hope and feeling better and healing and processing and knowing that you're not in it by yourself. I do invite you to rethink your own final stages, your own final decisions, and to think about how you can make decisions now that will help the people around you that you love to feel good about what's going to happen. Have a great day. God bless you. I will see you on Sunday for Gospel on the Go and next Monday for Church at Home with Rachel.